Kedves barátaim, szeretettel üdvözöllek benneteket. Ha azt kérdezitek, mit keresek ismét Jeruzsálemben, alig egy hete, kicsit több mint egy hete voltam itt utoljára, akkor a válasz az, hogy az élet úgy hozta, hogy itt kellett legyek a hétvégén, ki kellett jönnöm egy pár napra, és ha már itt vagyok, természetesen eljöttem a Siratófalhoz, és egy olyan különleges utazásban részesítelek benneteket, olyan különleges helyszínt mutatok meg, a Siratófal alatti alagútrendszert, katakombarendszert, Isten segítségével néhány perc múlva, amelyet én magam is csak egyszer láttam, és általában kisgyermekkel szoktunk itt lenni, most egyedül vagyok, úgyhogy kihasználtam a lehetőséget, hogy be tudjak menni a kamerámmal, és meg tudjam mutatni nektek ezt a fantasztikus helyszínt. Egy csoportos túrán lehet csak ide bejönni, előre regisztrálni kell. Ez egy angol nyelvű túra lesz. Természetesen fordítom a fontos dolgokat. A túra egyébként 38 sékhelybe, azaz kb. 3600 forintba kerül. És már bent is vagyunk az alagútrendszerben, nagyon szépen megcsinált. Amikor jó pár évvel ezelőtt itt voltam utoljára, akkor közel sem volt még ilyen kiépített a dolog. És már légkondicionálás segíti. Asztal lesz. Mögöttem a Szentélyel, Szentély átképével a képernyőn.
I do like that name, so I think I'll keep it. If you have cameras, and we're going to be together for about an hour. In that period of time, my job is to try to explain to you where we are, and possibly even why. Have you seen this building outside? Does anybody know what it's called? What would you expect? And in plain English about Moriah. Moriah is a Hebrew word. It means to teach. It also means to see. Which might be why after someone teaches us something we say, oh, I see. All that began here 3,800 years ago when a man got a command from God to go to the place that God chose. He had to follow a cloud. Kind of like following ways, eh? And so, Abraham, the first Jew, ends up right here with his son Isaac, the heart of what will become the city of Jerusalem 3,800 years ago. Let's fast forward, and now we're talking about David. King David conquers a small village of Jebusites. He builds his palace down here by the water. And his son Solomon goes back up the hill, and they find that spot, that same spot where Abraham was. And Solomon begins building the first temple. Does anyone know how to say Solomon in Hebrew? Shlomo. What Hebrew word does that sound like that many of you might know? Shalom, exactly. Because Solomon was a king of peace for about 52 years. And then things began to fall apart. But Solomon, Shlomo, built the first temple. It was magnificent. There were 10 miracles. And he prayed, God, please make this a house of prayer for all people. And so it became. 410 years passed. And then the Babylonians came. And they were not peaceful. And they destroyed. And kicked us out into exile. Well, actually, that was important. It got rid of the kings who'd become rather corrupt. And it changed the era of one for prophecy to one following the rabbis. Changes are always very difficult, but it was very good for us in the end. About 70 years later, there's another game changer. The Babylonians are out, and now the Persians are in, under Cyrus. Cyrus is an interesting man. He conquers all the countries around, as an emperor should. And then he says, now go back home and rebuild your national culture. Go back home and rebuild your national language and your national temples. Just remember, when it comes time to pay taxes, pay up on time, and we'll stay friends. So, we have a very modern-sounding Federation of Nations, 2,500 years ago. If you read Akkadian, you can read all about it on this iris cylinder the next time you visit Tehran. So, we were amongst the people who came back under Zerubbabel and Ezra and Nehemiah, and we rebuilt a rather small temple with no miracles and no Ark of the Covenant. But some amazingly important things happened, and time passed, about 300 years. And then along comes someone who says, "Ah, you call that a temple? I'll show you how to build." And now I'm talking about King Herod, the great builder. Solomon built small. Herod is going to build much bigger. And to do that, the top of this mountain has to be chopped off and turned into incredibly beautiful building blocks. Those building blocks are going to be pushed down the hill because the Temple Mount is built on the side of the hill. Let's broaden the circle. Let's all take a half a step back so everyone in the back can see. And the short people, the kids in the back, please come to the front. So, this was Solomon's era, and now this is going to be Herod's area. We've chopped off the top of this hill, and we're going to build 2 big vaults. That is a vault. It is a fat arch. They're extremely strong, and that's a good thing. 1, 2, because these vaults are going to have to support the southern end of the largest temple built in the Roman Empire. That's Herod for you. 144,000 square meters, which works out to be 20 soccer pitches. The western wall itself, 488 meters long. No, it's not, you say, because you're thinking about what you see outside. You're quite right. All you see outside is about 70 meters, plus another 81 to the southwest corner. So what about all this? Just a minute. First, let's get Herod's temple built. It was a stunning edifice, but there were no miracles, and there was no Ark of the Covenant. Remember, there was probably a smaller building here first. This stood for about 320 years. This one only gets to stand about 100 years. And then the Romans destroyed. And then things change. Incredibly. I hope they're having fun out there. Sounds like a roller skating rink. About 500 years passed, and then Abd al-Melech ibn al-Marwani, the Caliph from Damascus, built a dome of the rock on the site that in the Islamic tradition is where Muhammad went up to heaven to get the command to pray 5 times a day. Interestingly enough, in the same tradition, meeting Moses on the way, who gave him a bit of a lesson how to be a better prophet. And so, the Muslims are here, and we become Dahimi, second-class citizens. That's all right. We can exist under the radar. Ooh. We can exist under the radar, and so we do until a terrible Friday in 1099. The wolf is at the gate, and he is wearing Crusader clothing. The Crusaders were equal opportunity murderers, and they bashed through the gate, and it was, please don't get scared, off with their heads, all of them. You didn't get scared, did you? Good boy. After 12 hours of very enthusiastic ethnic cleansing, no one was left alive to help the poor Crusaders figure out how to make hummus. They're going to have a rough ride. Their presence is tolerated for 97 years. Now, if you happen to think I'm being a bit too rough on the Crusaders, please catch up. Do a Google on YouTube. You're looking for Crusaders? Terry Jones. That's the important part of it. You're not going to get a boring collegiate lecture because Terry Jones is a member of the British group Monty Python. And he will set you straight about the Crusaders and why, after 97 years, the Muslims got their act together and put up Salah ad-Din. And Salah was very clear. Out! Well, they didn't quite get the message, and they tried to come back another 9 times. Whew. So, here comes a group of Muslims, brilliant builders, and here is what they do. These are the Mamelukes, and it's 700 years ago. They fill the entire Tyropian Valley with vaults, build their buildings on top of the vaults, cover up the western wall and everything else. And that, my friends, is the western part of the Muslim quarter of today. And you can still see those 700-year-old, very well-built buildings. And now, please look at the western wall. Now you see it, and now you don't. And that's just about how fast they did it. And that part of the wall got covered up. So that means to see it, we're going to have to be walking under 700-year-old vaults. Right now, we're under 2,000-year-old vaults, so we're not underground. In fact, we're about 12 meters above ground. You very trustingly followed me into here. We are now going to head east and then north. Like this. In, east, north. Something very interesting. And now, are any of you part of a tour group? You're all independent. Well, at the end of the tour, you have the option of going off on your own in the Muslim quarter. You'll be on the Via Dolorosa. I highly recommend that, because you're already there. How many of you would that leave who do not want to go off on their own in the Muslim quarter and want to turn around and come back with me? I do need to see hands. All of you are making, please keep your hands up. You know, it's not enough. So what I'm going to do, you're about 8 people, we're going to walk back inside. I hope that's all right. Okay? Because it's not enough for me to call the guards. Everybody else, I can give you some directions at the end. Have a wonderful day. And are there any questions about what I said right now? Come on.
Very, very hard.
Please come on in a bit more. I'll leave the last people again. Other solution. A solution was built 2,100 years ago, and here it is. It is a bridge aqueduct that happens to be exactly above your heads. Does anyone have a problem with this picture? Does water indeed flow uphill? In Jerusalem? That's the problem with the picture. Bad picture. Of course not. Water never flows uphill. Always very, very gently and slowly downhill, right about over where I'm standing. The vault overhead was built 2,100 years ago, sometime in the Hasmonean period, probably by King Alexandriano, because he was as good a builder as Herod. Not sure about that, but it brought water from about 20 kilometers south of here, a bit south of Bethlehem, right under Gush Etzion, Efrat in Gush Etzion. And they built an aqueduct that was some 26 kilometers long. Around all the hills, through the Solomon's pools, over little bridges, and in 3 places, they tunneled through the bedrock, making 3 separate tunnels that altogether are over a kilometer long. And that tunnel's wide enough for a person to walk through. Obviously, that's the only way you could chisel it. If there are any engineers in the group, the difference in height between that spring and the Temple Mount is a mere 30 meters. And that is brilliant engineering. So, the water came through a little channel right over our heads, and everyone who was here used it, all the way up until the time of the British, in the 1930s. Ah, the British. They began coming in 1867 because there was a terrible cholera plague. Cholera is not corona. Cholera is deadly. Now, you two people do not know what causes cholera. We are standing in a cistern. This held drinking water. Would you, sir, smart, brave, and kind, like to drink water? Do you speak English? Right, like to drink water from this room that's been sitting against those walls? No, I wouldn't either. So what we're going to have to do is plaster it. Nice, thick, clean white plaster. Now it's okay to drink water, right? Problem is, well, yes, you can. The plaster is what takes care of the quality of the water, but the problem is there's something else down here too. And there's no way you could imagine what it is. Go for it. Really yucky.
Like bugs?
No. You can't believe I said that. Because otherwise you wouldn't understand. This place was full of it because everybody dumped it down under their houses. And if you're poor and you can't keep that plaster nice and thick and new, it cracks. Ew. And then all that stuff gets in. I'd rather have bugs. And people died. And the British said, this is what's going on. And then they went back to London. Oh, too bad. One man stayed. His name was Charles Warren. He fell in love with Jerusalem, and he wanted to dig under what the Muslims call the Haram al-Sharif. The Ottomans were in charge. And they didn't like that idea, so he had to dig secretly. And when they found out what he was digging, and when they saw the maps that he was drawing, they got quite upset. Were the Ottomans and the British allies or enemies? Oh, that's a good question. They had just fought together, but a few years had moved on. And now, are they friends or enemies? They didn't really know. And they thought this Mr. Warren might be a spy. Exactly. An enemy spy. And when you have an enemy spy, what do you do with them? You do. But if he might be a friend, you got a problem. So, one day when he was down here, they simply pushed a huge boulder over his little doorway. What happens next? Come, let's find out. If you dare. Oh, that was a good trick. You speak English? Yes? No. I'm sorry. Because I speak with you.
Őrült katakombák. Wow. Ezt nézzétek, milyen mélyre megy le a fal.
Please remember these vaults are part of our bridge that is 2,100 years old. We are standing under the top vault. My hands are resting on this pier that supports the last huge vault that carried water onto the Temple Mount in the time of the Hasmoneans, and quite a few years thereafter. Charles Warren was standing in this area when he heard that huge boulder being pushed over this exit. That's around this corner. He had paid attention to what was going on outside. There's a big building to the left of the men's prayer area outside. It's a 700-year-old building built by the Mamelukes. It's a court of Sharia law. Warren knew it was there, and he hoped that if he pulled those 2 blocks out of the wall, he would be to the west of that building, able to squiggle through, hit the ground, and run for it. He was right in the middle of the building. filled with ottomans. So, my friends, you are in the original escape room. Now, pay attention. You've got to get yourself out of here. This entire area is sealed off. That's not going to help. This wall goes all the way down to the floor. There is only one way out of here. Most of those escape rooms, it's actually quite obvious. And the answer is not written on my face. You've got 30 seconds. Go. Have you ever been in an escape room? No. The door. The doorway. It's good to go through a door, isn't it? Well, when Charles Warren found that doorway out of here, it was filled with rocks and dirt. He had to dig his way out, but in doing so, he discovered everything you saw on your way in here. Another whole area no one knew anything about. He got out, he survived, he lived to be 97, and has had the pleasure of guiding some of his grandkids on this tour. Are there any questions?
Oh my God.
Years ago, you didn't see the synagogue, did you? Well, we're looking at 700-year-old walls. I'm standing here because there's a little metal edge right here. I don't want anybody to hit it with their foot, so be careful as you walk by, please. It's not sharp, but it could be quite unpleasant if you have sandals on. So you're looking at a 700-year-old vault, which I do not understand. It looks like the rocks are just thrown into a wall of concrete. Well, the concrete, the cement is new. We have to renew that because there is water dripping through here, and water does dissolve cement even once it's set. So we do things like that. We put in those metal grommets, and it's been standing for 700 years, all four of these vaults, holding up an Islamic religious school that was built by the Mamelukes. And under that Islamic religious school, we built a lovely synagogue. Oh, you might wonder why we did that. That would be a very good question. We'll have to find an answer to that in just a minute, but I want you to know where you are. If I were to go through that doorway, I'd be in trouble, because I'd be in the men's indoor prayer area. Run, 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 run. Oh, now I'm in the men's outdoor prayer area. Run, run, run. Pole vault over the mechitza, I'm in the ladies' prayer area, which is a fancy way of saying this floor is the level of the Western Wall Prayer Plaza outside. When we get down to the bottom of these stairs, we are still going to be 12 meters above the ground, which means these 700-year-old Mameluke vaults are really tall. And after building these tall single vaults, they kind of realized rather quickly that that wasn't such a good idea, so near the Great Syrian African Rift. And so they're backfilled halfway with dirt. And the walls of the vaults held the dirt in place because you remember, we're on the side of a hill. And then the women in the houses above said, "Ah, Muhammad, please, build me a cistern." And so the top part of these vaults got plastered and turned into cisterns, and that turns out to be a perfect shock absorber. Well, there's your answer. The Western Wall. We are standing by the Western Wall, north of the Western Wall Prayer Plaza, outside, and a bit below. We are right here. That is right here. So, We are by the western wall, not only, but we are very close to the spot that is opposite where the temple once stood. And we wanted to return congregational prayer to this area. So this was a lovely place to build the synagogue because of those 700-year-old vaults. The western wall, a complicated story. Look at the bottom wall of stone, painted by Rhodian stones. I'm going to rather erase that. They're lovely carved stones. Big. 5, 10, 20 tons. Hard to move in place. According to Josephus Flavius, everything you see on this picture was built by 10,000 proud, independent Jewish stonemasons in 20 years. No slaves. And they carved their love for what they were doing into the wall. So, according to one set of bosses I have, the same academically trained archaeologist, this wall was built. Most of the Temple Mount was built by Herod some 2,000 years ago.
Ez egy nyugati fal, azaz a Siratófal alsó része hatalmas, elképesztő nagy kövekkel. 700 tonnát elképesztő.
אנשים אומרים לנו, כל פעם שאתה עושה משהו לא טוב, אומרים לך. כל פעם שאתה עושה משהו לא טוב, אז אפשר גם להגיד משהו טוב.
וואו.
איבדתי.
It's
like the first time since 2004 that I've lost you.
not bad.
I feel weird walking this house. I feel like I'm breaking the law.
Szépen
Did you know
megcsinálni.
your number?
Yes.
Katakombák
That,
ezek.
yeah.
The vodka shot. This is the closest place you can get to where the temple once stood and pray, which is why we created that little chapel there as a marker for that special spot. We are looking at the western wall that was knocked down by that big earthquake in 1033. If you look down to the bottom, that might very well be the bottom of the western wall, you can see the bottom rows were never knocked out of place. They're still firmly in place. Of course, the wall was rebuilt by the Muslims using the same stones.
Ez itt körülbelül 15 méter mélyben lehet.
We're looking up at a well-pastored cistern from 700 years ago, and we're under the Muslim quarter, thinking about 1948. May 15th, 1948. Actually, little old man gets up.
Az alagutamiben bemegyünk, kb. 120 méter hosszú, ezt már modern időben építették. Beton és vas tartja, úgy van ez a vas építve itt, hogy nem ér hozzá a falhoz, hiszen ami mellettem van, régi kövek, az a úgynevezett nyugati fal, azaz a templomhegy nyugati oldalán lévő szent fal, a Siratófal folytatása. Úgyhogy látjátok, a kövek pont úgy néznek ki, mint a kinti Siratófalon. Elképesztő. Wow. Őrület. Csöpög és nedvesség. és vissza az alagúthoz. Egy ciszterna, meg még egy ciszterna, és itt már mindkét oldalon régi kövek vannak. Hihetetlenül úgy építették ezt a alagutat, hogy a jobb oldalon ezek a fémtámaszok és ezek a vas elemek direkt úgy vannak megszerkesztve, hogy a fal szent részeihez ne érjenek hozzá. Maga az egész vasbeton alagút ne érjen hozzá a Siratófal alatti, mármint a Siratófal folytatásához, az úgynevezett nyugati falhoz. Ha itt jártok Jeruzsálemben a Siratófalnál, mindenképpen érdemes előre bejegyezni egy ilyen túrára.
Years ago. We are almost at the end of the western wall. And when we dug in here, we saw these stones that I'm standing on just lying here. We also saw this. Now, if the work had been finished, the workers would have packed dry wood in here, and then right before they left, they would have poured water on top. What happens to dry wood when you pour water on top? Starts to expand, it swells, and it puts pressure on the rock. And all of this rock is limestone. Limestone is a sedimentary rock, laid down at the bottom of a huge sea that covered this whole area. How long ago? Well, use as many zeros as your worldview demands. A long time ago. And all that yip at the bottom of the sea got condensed into a sedimentary rock, which, when you put pressure on the side, cracks on the dotted line, very easy to work with. So this is going to fall off, and in the morning when you come to work, it'll be down on the ground, easy for you to chisel. But that morning never came. The work was deserted. The workers, after carving out these paving stones, dropped and ran.
Kicsit tovább folytatjuk az utunkat, észak felé. Fal mellett, az arab rész mellett, vagy alatt pontosabban. Rendesek, hogy tettek ilyen párnákat, hogy nem benne verje a fejét. Ez a veszélyben nem áll fenn. Közismerten nagyon magas vagyok ugyanis. Nagyon szűkek jó szűk az út. Még nem, aztán megint. Wow. Ezt nézzétek. Elképesztő. Ciszternában víz van. És halak. Ez pedig itt ez a kis zsinagóga. Wow, de gyönyörű. És egy gyönyörű fricekrény. Wow. Yes, hasonlót nem láttam még soha. Elképesztő dizájn. Wow.